So we're here today to really talk about driving efficiencies in accounts payable, but really finance as well. And I guess just by show of hands, how many people here from local government? Right in the financial area or IT? Oh, great. So we want this definitely to be a very interactive session. So as we're talking about solutions, and are any of you already using Nowadays? Okay, perfect. So please, if you are, and you have some great stories to tell, type in as well. So we love that. So we're talking about driving efficiencies in accounts payable and finance, and I always like to start off with a quick story. When you're thinking about this, again, it's not just how can we use this technology in accounts payable, but I don't know if you've seen that AT&T commercial where the gentleman has the 4 kids and he's asking them questions. And he says, what's the highest number that you can think of? And the girl says, what?
Infinity.
Yeah, infinity. And I love it. As the other little child, and he says 10. So I want you to think about infinity here, because you can cross over and use a lot of this technology in other financial areas, not just in accounts payable. Okay. So really quickly. Do we have a business challenge? Well, we're always kind of challenged in government these days, and one of them is, how can we implement changes that are going to make us more efficient? Again, accounts payable is an area we're going to talk about today, but think about other areas that you might have paper-intensive or manual processes that you could use this system to definitely help you improve your productivity. So when Sean and I were thinking about how we would present this, we first thought we'd kind of paint a picture of, does this sound like you right now? Okay. So Sean, you want to talk about this first step?
Yeah, here we got the invoice processing. It's all paper stamps. Comes into our accounts payable here. So you can see all the stacks of stuff coming in, incoming files here. There's stacks of paper not being scanned in currently, and then inter-officing and all that stuff as well.
So I've seen some heads shaking it. That kind of sounds like what we're doing now. So then once all of that paper is processed, we have to route them for approval. Is this your current system where you're routing those invoices using kind of a mail system? And does everybody have one building where everybody's working in one building? Oh gosh. Yeah. This did not happen in our township, but it was a story I read of the fire departments are always tend to be separate. And they would drive over with that big fire pumper every day to pick up invoices. It's a community who shall remain nameless. Anyway, and I thought, okay, finance person here, how much money is it costing to, and they can't drive that alone. There always has to be 2 firefighters. So anyway, my point is, when you're routing invoices, it's probably very rare that everybody's going to be in one central location, right?
Right.
Check processing. All right. So, for Sean, because we're always calling the printer, something's wrong with the printer, because we are running right now yellow copies of all the checks that are produced in our accounts payable. Is that something most of you are doing now? And then somebody literally has to take, can I use that as somebody literally has to pull all the backup and supporting invoices, match them to the yellow copies. Now that looks nice and neat, but it's usually not that neat. Oh, I see a head shaking, right. And depending on your volumes, which, it could take up to a day to, run those check copies, burst them, get your matching supporting documentation, staple them, and file them. Is that a good estimate? Okay. We're going to show you quickly in the demo how a lot of that stuff now, this process for us when we implemented it turned out to be less than 5 minutes. We took a whole day's process and in less than 5 minutes with incredible reliability. So, document retrieval. So Sean, when you have to find documents now in the manual system, what's your experience been?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. It's going over to the finance department, talking to them, and then they say, yes, we'll find it, but we're not exactly sure where it is. It's in the file cabinet. We can get it to you. We'll get it back to you later today or whatever, the next day or so.
It's not very customer friendly, is it? So, the nice thing about having that check image overlay that we talked to you about earlier is you don't even have to scan these documents after you print them. Everything is there now and matched. And we're going to show you some neat features of how that happens through the system. And then document retrieval now becomes really very instantaneous. And how you retrieve those documents is all going to depend on how you structure those search fields. And I can tell you my first round at looking at developing this solution, it was very helpful because we did, we worked with in conjunction, we collaborated with ImageSoft, and they really help you think about what is an efficient way to really search these documents and how do you want to structure them. And we literally, you know that you've achieved success when you get departments emailing you and thanking you because they may have had a subpoena where they had to go back and search 10 years worth of records. We actually had that just happen last week. Our director of public safety called me and he said, now I started with Marshall Township last December, so I'm still fairly new. I was prior to that with Novi for 13 years and I also worked in private industry. But he said, I'm really sorry to do this. You're going to hate me. You just started and I don't want you to hate me. And I said, well, why am I going to hate you? He said, I need you to go back and retrieve these specific documents. And I said, okay, well, what's our reference point? He goes, the beginning of time. So I'm like, okay, you know what? We had it done in less than an hour. In all, we didn't even have to print copies. So anyway, he was really impressed. And so the good news is it does really make your jobs easier, but also it does afford you now the ability to provide that much higher level of customer service. So that's kind of a quick overview of maybe this is how you're working. Oh,
Can I stop you for a minute?
absolutely.
I'm going to ask some background questions.
Sure.
What finance software are you using?
Great question. So we are using BSNA. That's our primary line of business application. Yep. Is that
We use that in King County, yeah.
perfect?
But number two, though, you said ImageSoft helped you with the implementation. Did they do the workflow for you? Did they write that up for you?
They really did. They came in and took the time to really listen to how we were working and what our process was, and then gave us great suggestions to think about now how the system will work. And because if it's new to you, I really recommend partnering with that expertise because the setup is so important in this. And it just makes it such a much more successful end product. So in your example, we're going to show you here in a minute. I'm stealing all your thunder, Steve, but we used App Enabler, and it's Application Enabler. And literally, I can have a user now. So my auditors, I started December 10th. We have a December 31st fiscal year end of the township. In just that amount of time, we cut 2 weeks out of our audit time. And one of the reasons for that, we sat them down and they were able to retrieve all their accounts payable, backup, we could vouch everything just simply by going to a desktop that Sean set up for them, and we set up security for them, and they could just retrieve those documents right there.
And you're going to show us the functionality. The one piece that I have most interest in is as you're on .NET, on BSNet.
Yes, we are,
okay.
correct.
And so you're on a SQL database there, and I assume you got a SQL database with your, obviously your on-base installation. My question, and I hope you're going to bring us through this, is when you, let's say, scan an invoice through in processing, as it's being indexed into the on-base instance of your SQL server,
Right.
how is that documentation? I want to see how's it getting into the BSNA. Is there a separate motion or action item you got to do within the BSNA application to actually attach that actual invoice in, or is it automatically doing it for you within the SQL instance of the BSNA?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
So one of the things we did operationally, and then trying back to the technological piece of it, we actually have 2 screens where we have, when we bring up our document, our invoice to, index, it'll integrate with the BSNA software automatically. So when we go into that vendor name field, instead of free-forming, because then obviously you have the probability that it may not sync, it actually literally goes into that BSNA vendor file. So you're populating all your data, so that document, that data input is now so much easier, and it's always accurate. Always accurate, so that integration's there. So do you think, Steve, we should start getting into
We can, absolutely.
the demo? Those are great questions, I love that, because those were kind of questions early on, and say, this is gonna work if it eliminates
Well,
redundancy and.
Well, you want it to be better than someone going to a copy or a scan and then having to take that file and do something, human action with it. We're trying to eliminate human action. So that's the piece I'm really interested in, seeing that automation piece.
All right, you want me to jump into the demo now?
Ready?
You guys have anything else, or?
Yeah, I think, is everybody ready to kind of see how the software now?
Then we need to stop in between for answer questions and do that.
Sounds good.
So absolutely, and then, for example, you'll be in the BSNA check screen. So, because a lot of your users are just so comfortable looking up documents in whatever that primary line of business application you are. So you're in that screen, simply clicking anywhere on that screen automatically takes you to that check copy with all that supporting documentation. So we're in the past right now, you're probably running your yellow copies or whatever color the check copies are, matching those invoices. Again, we eliminated that whole manual process. What used to take at least a day, sometimes two, is done literally, I say 5 minutes, it's probably less than that. Another great feature, again, is that integration with your accounts payable vendor files. So you're not having to duplicate data entry, it's all there, all integrated. Yep.
Great, so I'm just gonna kind of take it from here and step through a very, very quick kind of overview of an AP solution here within OnBase. Certainly, if there are questions as we go along, don't hesitate to stop me, and we'll try to address them as best we can. This is, again, going to be a very high level, just kind of scratching the surface of some of the stuff that we can do with OnBase. But here, the first thing I have up is what we refer to as a custom query. And this is really nice, something that can be presented to users that perhaps are doing very frequent searches throughout the day, or maybe they're not frequent OnBase users, and you just want to present them with a very easy interface from which to interact, kind of the first thing they see. So this is just kind of that predefined search criteria for them. You can see very easily along the different fields that I can search by in this case.
The folks that are using OnBase, how many are using the Unity client today? Anybody? So this screen may look new to you. This is good old OnBase, just kind of with the newest client interface. So it's more of an Office, excuse me, 2003, 2007 look to it. It's just an improved interface, all the same capabilities are. And I'll talk, when we talk about an option for the cloud, I'll discuss how this client, how this Unity technology can be leveraged to distribute this sort of processing amongst different people.
Yeah. One of the things that we found at Highland Software and with our close relationship with Microsoft, one of the reasons they went to kind of that ribbon look and feel is that all their software change requests that they were getting for Word, Excel, whatever that might be, they discovered 75% of the functionality or the request for functionality they were getting for that product was already in the product. People just had a hard time getting to it. So, that's one of the things I think we strive to do as well, is just kind of refresh that interface. Just kind of an example here, I did that query for a particular invoice. What I got back was a hit list of documents related to that particular query that I did. You can see here as I pull up this vendor invoice, just essentially an image that was scanned into the system here. One of the nice things that we can do with OnBase is add vendor notes. You can see that this tile popped up. I kind of set that up here. So you can see if we have a whole list of notes here attached to this document, you can kind of see them in a nice grouping along this right-hand panel. Something that, again, is newer with the Unity client. I have all this familiar functionality that you'd expect of an image viewer, whether it's to rotate it or do a rubber band zoom, etc. within the Unity client as well.
Question on those notes, can they transfer over to the BSNA notes section of that application as well?
No, these notes would just live on the documents within Onbase. Yeah.
You'll see a lot of the value of how those notes are automatically populated in Onbase through workflow, because you can create notes that you know you're going to use on a recurring basis rather than type them. And then depending on your business process, it'll automatically attach those notes when you go to initiate a task in workflow.
So we also have an example here of a check, and again, this is just in this case, it's a PDF document that's been stored into Onbase. Onbase stores the files in their native file format, so if it's a Word document, it's going to be stored as Word, PDF is going to be stored as a PDF with no custom file format or what have you that we're going to crowbar you into with using Onbase.
Just a quick point, so Marina made a point earlier that a lot of the data goes in without user intervention. So checks, and purchase orders, and prices, and delivery is under anything that can be printed out of your existing systems, printed out of BSNA. We can tap into that print stream and automatically store and index those documents. So the point is, when you print the checks, we can kind of tee off of that print stream, and that data will appear in Onbase perfectly indexed every time as documents in the system. So you won't have to scan the checks, you won't have to scan your POs. Anything you're creating can automatically appear in the system and be linked, as you'll see, through cross-reference.
Yeah, and to Scott's point here, this is exactly an example of what he's just talking about. Here's just kind of like that text feed from our line of business application that we would have adjusted, into Onbase. We've applied an overlay to it to make it a little bit easier to read, perhaps how it would have been sent out as a purchase order up to your vendor. All right, so that's just one way to retrieve documents from within the Onbase client. We have many others. We also have our document retrieval dialog screen. This is nice, and again, keep in mind that all the naming conventions and that sort of thing that you'll see within these drop-downs is all configurable, so you're not limited to that, to these naming conventions we have just in this basic demo here. So you can see this is also helpful in kind of showing how documents are classified from within Onbase. So you have our kind of our primary classification, which we call document type groups. In this case, for this particular demo, we've established the document type groups by department, so accounts payable, human resources. Kind of that next level down is what we refer to as document types. So if you can see this okay up here, as I click through, you can see purchase orders, just simply like documents that are stored together. The last really important piece of the puzzle that comes into play here are the keyword values or metadata values. Basically how documents are going to be classified and then later retrieved from within Onbase.
So then, what was important to us when we were looking at a document imaging solution, we said, so we're kind of asking a lot of the same questions you are, in addition to it just being document imaging, what else can it do to help improve our efficiencies? So we kind of talked about workflow a little bit. Is everybody familiar with the workflow concept? Great, all right, so that was, again, hugely beneficial to us. So now, where you saw all those paper invoices, that whole invoice management solution, those are indexed. Again, remember, we're integrating with BSNA, so all that data is, most of that data is populating right from our primary line of business app, and then routed out to the departments for approval instantaneously. So do you get a lot of calls often from vendors, hey, where's my, no, right. This happens a lot. And, unless you have ESP and know that that invoice was routed to, I said that invoice, I gave it over to Steve and it's sitting on his desk, but they might call someone else from my office who's not going to know that that interaction happened. Literally, what you were showing with the retrieval and you were saying with all the data that you'll bring that up, because oftentimes, when you just look at, let's say BSNA as an imaging solution, you're bringing it into the system when? After it's been paid. It's all that stuff that happens before it gets paid that is so manual to try to, and as a, happened to be an auditor in a prior life, so I could tell you another reason that we streamlined about 2 weeks out of our audit time. What's really important to auditors is at the end of your fiscal year, search for unrecorded liabilities. Well, how am I going to know I have all my liabilities properly recorded if there are invoices sitting over at our fire station or our, so here, your invoices are in the system at the point of receipt, and then whatever the status is, you can retrieve those and say, I can run a quick search for unpaid invoices within this date range. I can prove that to my auditors, and I have all my liabilities properly recorded. So when earlier when I said that AT&T commercial, when you think that, when he goes, that those possibilities are endless, those are the kinds of efficiencies you think about how you might be able to use that. So while it's great to scan that image and have it in BSNA, it's so much more valuable to have that information available on the front end of the process and being able to manage now accounts payable. You're eliminating that manual process, so you're to spend time managing accounts payable versus doing the manual work, I guess, for lack of a better term.
We're also going to show, I think, in the slide, the Outlook integration as well, where you have all of these invoices that are sitting on your desk, and right now it's currently stamped with a date you need to return back to accounts payable. Where with the Outlook integration, you can kind of get notifications when you know something's coming up. If you're 1 day away from something that's been sitting in your queue waiting to be processed, you can send you those notifications, and I think you can even approve it right through Outlook without even opening up the.
When you say Outlook, does that mean Outlook or
Outlook.
Outlook? So
Yeah.
it's an Outlook client specific.
Yeah, correct.
What's not clear to me though is, okay, I see how you retrieve a document, fine, I get that. But, okay, let's talk about the process itself over in Northville.
Right.
I get my first invoice from OnBase for $5 million. You go into the Highland software, you scan it in.
Right.
All right, and then you're going into BSNA, assuming you've got the PO set up, let's assuming that, if you have PO, and you're launching your AP module for BSNA, you're finding your vendor, for ImageSoft, and then you're gonna attach whatever document you just scanned in as your invoice. So is that, to me, I'm just trying to think to myself, I just don't see the automation yet.
Yeah, is it possible yet to go to a workflow screen?
Sure, no problem.
So what would happen is, okay, we've got that invoice, right? It's scanned. It comes into OnBase, and it's gonna sit, you're gonna define what there'll be workflow queues. And one of them could be route for approval.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going in that workflow queue to route for approval. You're going to have tasks in workflow that say, okay, route this invoice, click that task, and I want to send this invoice to, and I'm sorry, your first name? Heath. We're going to route this invoice, this ImageSoft invoice to Heath. That invoice comes in then to your queue, for approval, your approval queue.
Within the OnBase software.
Yeah, you're not in BSNA yet.
Yeah.
You integrated with BSNA when you were matching up that invoice,
Yeah.
right, an index. So now you've got an approval queue.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready to go in and approve that invoice. And let's say this is the invoice now.
Mhm.
And then cross over the screen. Here we go. So you'll have tasks, that you'll see.
Right up on the top of that.
Look at this, where tasks appear now because of that whole, I love this unique product, I can't wait to get it. Those are gonna appear up on the top. It's gonna feel very similar to all your other applications. So you're gonna say, I'm either gonna approve this invoice or I'm gonna deny that invoice. Whatever action you're gonna take will depend on what task you select.
Okay, so let's say we approve.
Okay, we're gonna approve an invoice. Beautiful. once you approve that invoice, it comes back to finance. Okay, now remember, you could have attached notes here, or if you had supporting documents, you'll see all of that as well. Because, you know, you could have shipper, you can have, you know.
You can have detail attachments onto there, if you want detail attachments onto that.
Now, let's say that this invoice required a purchase order. You could either, you're in your business process, remember what Scott said, all those documents you're actually compiling in BSNA come right over into, so that purchase order is gonna reside in OnBase. And Steve showed you how they take that text stream rather, and then put it into a nice, a purchase order document for King County. That purchase order is indexed with that invoice. So when it comes back to finance, we're not going, hey Heath, where's that purchase, it's all there. And then we look and we have a queue that says, to process invoices for payment. And what we're doing there is we're making sure that, yes, the general ledger number is correct. And again, when you go into approve invoice, you can actually prompt the user to enter a general ledger number. Where is this going to be charged? All of that good stuff. So then, once we get through all of that, your accounts payable person is going to have BSNA open on screen 1,
Right.
OnBase open on screen 2, and then we actually created keywords that, you can just, it's the accounts payable clerk enters the vendor number, the amount, the GL number right there, and keys it automatically into BSNA in that invoice entry screen. Once that happens, this invoice is done, it's been entered for payment, and it goes into a waiting for check copy queue.
Well, the reason, and I hope, please don't take any of these comments as negative, I'm just trying to learn what you guys are doing, because we have workflow already within BSNA, okay? So what it looks like to me so far, what I would be doing is duplicating basically what I'm already doing in BSNA so far. So our question is, like for example, in that invoice, we're already scanning it in, we're already attaching it to our PO requisition, we have to do it yet again in AP, I don't like it with BSNA, but I have to do it. And then the workflow routes it appropriately within BSNA right now. And so I know when it's mine, I know when it's my accounting team, I know when it's whoever. So are we talking a completely separate parallel workflow?
No, what you're doing is you're in PO in BSNA, and you're basically at that requisition stage. Somebody's entered that requisition, and you're entering the purchase order. Then from there, that purchase order comes into the OnBase system, and the OnBase helps you manage all your invoice processing.
And so you're not doing any data entry within AP and BSNA, is that what I'm hearing?
It's not a duplicate system. Now, there is the
So
duplicate.
this is in place of the AP module.
The AP module is still there to pay your vendors, but what this is doing is, and go ahead.
It's going to eliminate the AP processing you're doing in there as far as the workflow process you're doing there. This would be replacing that workflow process.
So I'm not going into BSNA, I'm not entering in, hey, I'm finding so-and-so vendor, I'm setting up the pay parameters, when it's due, all that's being done here.
Correct.
Okay, so the only time I'm going into the AP module of BSNA is when I want to run my check register.
Yes.
Okay, because all that's been pre-populated now from the Highland software.
Yes.
Okay, now I got it, all right.
You use BSNA as a,
Yes.
so you chose to replace the invoice part by with OnBase work. Were you using the invoice processing in BSNA before you replaced it?
Sort of.
Yeah.
We were trying to, and it wasn't doing everything we kind of wanted it to do.
It's not like this, but say I'm in county work that's using BSNA for AP, and I have an emergency user not only for the position, but also for the base strategy. Would be actually easier to just have OnBase as a repository for the document, have automated indexing, query BSNA for all the keywords that I need, and then have a button with BSNA on an invoice, click on that button, and have OnBase display the documents for me.
it's,
Sure,
And
and
then
it's,
people need easier integration rather than trying to replace the invoice processing work and the economics processing work. I think, I mean, what it sounds to me is that, you went to a non-based invoice processing workflow because you were not actually using it in BSNA. Am I correct?
and we found that we were able to, it was more robust in the sense of how we could map out our business rules, and it gave us a lot more. I'm big on internal controls, that's my background, and it gave us a lot more functionality and ability to manage that process versus a BSNA system. But that doesn't mean, BSNA does amazing things. What I loved about this feature was how well they played together.
So you, basically you switched to a non-based workflow because it was effectively.
And what we also, right, and we wanted to eliminate having to scan those documents in after the fact, right? So, and we wanted to have a better handle on how we were managing invoices from the point of receipt. Would you say that's?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would also say by using Outbase, you can, if you're looking at the big, much broader process, including the projects, you can go all the way from the concept of the project, including the RFP, the council resolution, then contract that's signed, and then whatever milestones, you can incorporate all those documents into that file, not just how you pay for it. How you pay for it is just one piece of it. That's for the value of something like that, on-base.
Excellent. So as you can see, it's important to really sit down and think about how, our goal today, and hopefully we've achieved that, is to give you options and possibilities. Think about your business process, and I think the judge this morning said it so well. Really think about what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, where you want to end up, and then do your homework, ask the questions. That is huge. And I think, before you want to make those decisions, this is just giving you a surface.
Well, can I ask one more question? Is once you guys are now processing this invoice request, you go into BSNA, you process the check request. I understand how the automation of the check copy goes back into the on-base solution. My question is, now I'm in general ledger, and now I want to drill down on an activity within BSNA. I can still drill down on all that detail, including the attachment, or do I have to know, is there a link with general ledger to on-base for the attachments as well?
Well, that's where the beauty of App Enabler comes in. You can create, so whether you want to link it through AP or general ledger, again, it doesn't matter whether you're using BSNA or whatever that line of business application you're using. And Steve, maybe you can talk to that.
Let me pull that up here.
Technical. So those would be decisions you'd want to make in terms of how you want to link that, but the answer would be you're kind of using this module.
And that's one of the nice things too, as well with OnBase, especially App Enabler, is that you can leverage that BSNA system, the system that your users have been very comfortable with using over the years, and still leverage the OnBase functionality, retrieve documents right from the BSNA screen from OnBase. One of the nice things that we have done over the last, was it OnBase 12, where we really took application enabler to the next level, where, and you heard Bill Creamer mention it today, where your information will find you. In the past, we've had great solutions with App Enabler where we could say, set up different zones on a line of business application, and this is kind of just a mock-up one for the demo, but you can double click or do control keys and that sort of thing, but we actually have this concept now of a live count where you can see when I have this little panel up here, I can hover over it and it tells me, okay, I'm on this screen. It's intelligent enough to know, okay, there is a vendor invoice related to this, and it's literally just a click away. I can see that. So it's really kind of interacting with me and telling me the different information that's there. What's nice is that if I go to different tabs within this ERP, and let me make sure I have this live count window up so you can see it. When I go to the PO screen, may just take a second here, you can see that this changed. And the reason it's changed, it's still finding one document, but it's also alerting me to the fact that, there is a particular document that we have configured within OnBase that is missing. So in this case, it looks like it's a partial payment record that we are missing just in this particular demo. So that's one of the nice things too, that OnBase can service you that information to say, not only is there a document in the system that may be of importance to you, but oh, by the way, you may be missing a very important document as well.
And that's just another added functionality that was important to us, because we wanted to make sure those records were, the integrity of that data was complete.
Can I ask you a question on the technical end in regards to users? Because I assume users are your licensing per user, not per site, correct?
It's generally per user license, yes, and we have, concurrent models and that sort of thing as well.
So you got a desktop that's already utilizing this model here, let's say Northfield as an example, and what unique identifier are you using to link that desktop and the transactions within that desktop to the active SQL database? The reason why I'm asking that is we have a VDI environment. Okay? We need to make sure that whatever client you're using here is obviously not going to tie me to a unique SID or something like that. Because that's where I had a problem with BSNA, is we have floating desktops. And so guess what? The desktop I'm grabbing today is not the same one I'm grabbing tomorrow.
Sure.
And so if you don't have a way of linking that individual transactional data, that's what I'm trying to, I know we can talk more about that later, but these are things I'm trying to learn more and more every day to get an idea how it works.
Oh, excellent questions,
Yeah, it's Scott, I mean, that may be something I want to take back to some of our solution engineers and have them kind of weigh in on as well, but.
We've talked about it. We've got customers using VDI in that precise version. You've got some larger customers, so there's no real compatibility issue that we're aware of. That environment is a little different from the standard Windows desktop, so it has some nuances, but OnBase supports it. If there's more questions about that, we can get deeper into the covers and how that works.
So what we want to do is, we did a demo at our site and had different departments there, and not only are they excited about accounts payable, early on in the session I said, think of how can this improve your finance operations? And I don't know if anybody's thinking of maybe using this in their HR, human resources, there's water and sewer. So what we wanted, when we looked at an imaging solution and beyond, was more of an enterprise-wide solution.
Yeah, same here.
And I don't know, from an IT perspective, is that easier to maintain? Yeah. So that was kind of, again, part of the bigger business solution. We weren't just thinking about how can this help accounts payable, we were thinking of it in a much broader.
On the IT for how many SQL servers are you maintaining?
We have,
Just for OnBase.
just around base, we just have one.
Just the one instance? Okay, one core?
Yeah, the BSNA is a tendency to create like 200.
Tons of yeah, tons.
But on the name on base means one of the base.
So those are the things you want to think. So that's why, again, I'm sure whatever that primary business line you're using is great. No, but when you're looking at this solution, think about it more from a whole perspective. How are we doing on time? Because I'm usually always going over, because as you can tell,
You got a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I know you got some slides at the end.
are you ready for that?
Sure.
Perfect.
So let me just real quick kind of talk a little bit about the future of a future option for using some of these capabilities. And it may be for some of the folks in the room, it might be for maybe cities that are in your county, maybe for ways to share information and work together. So what we're talking about, so this is again the future, is kind of visionary. This is probably in the next 6 to 12 months. So Marina and Sean and I have worked together to look at ways that we could build maybe a cloud-based version of this. And Highland actually is moving a lot more of their software into models like this, where you can just forget all the infrastructure costs for a minute and focus, similar to other cloud-based solutions, you pay more of a consumption price. So I can't give you specific pricing today. We can talk about that at a, a future conversation, but it's more of a per user, per year, per quarter, that sort of consumption. If you're familiar with products like Salesforce.com, things like that, they're highly convenient because you can literally start using them next month. You're off. You don't have any infrastructure costs. You don't have huge IT investments of administering and things like that. So we view accounts payable as a very nice kind of self-contained system that could be used in this model. So we just want to click through all these areas. So this, I've talked about a few of these things. We've defined kind of the main types of users. So these types of subscriptions would have slightly different price points, with the input, the scan station being the most sophisticated, we're requiring the most software, which only have a few of those. And then the workflow being the kind of back office folks that we talked about, they're doing those approvals and things like that. And then the rest of the community having a less expensive model. So this is kind of an idea that we're moving towards. And what Marina and Sean and I are talking about is maybe for Northville, we can take their model. So Marina did this system once before, years ago, and I did really a stellar job building a system that worked for a large city. Okay, now they're in a township, so we're kind of refining it for that. We're talking about putting her system up in the cloud, working with Highland. That cloud will probably be based, ImageSoft owns a cloud here where we do some of our e-filing stuff that we talked about this morning. We'll probably put it in that same platform, very robust, Michigan-based, so the data stays here, it's not overseas or even out of state. But you could sign up for this, leverage it once you click the next. Here's my great grandson. Based in the cloud. The benefits I've talked about a lot, and I'll wrap up here. Almost no cost of entry, right? There will be some analysis work, more of a gap analysis. So what we typically do today, and what we did with them is when we implemented, we spent a lot of time and a fair amount of money doing a design. This won't be like that. This is going to be a pre-designed, pre-built system. It works a certain way. It has some flexibility. We meet with you more on what we call a gap analysis and define what are the configuration points for you. And that's going to be a 1 or 2 day process instead of a maybe a 3 or 4 week process with with a formal document that we're providing. So this will be a much more kind of prescribed process. What we're trying to do is really drive those costs out of the process. You'll get best practices from folks. And that's really a key part of this vision. They've done it. It works. She's kind of slain all the dragons already that need to be. And we'll make those. And we understand that no buy solution doesn't work 100% for everybody else, but we know we have some ideas on, because we've done a lot of AP systems. Where do we need areas of configurability? Where does the workflow deviate based on certain accounting rules and certain size of the organization and number of people in the accounting department? So we can build that kind of flexibility into the workflows. But the point is you're going to get those best practices, low risk, a better infrastructure than many of us could afford. A lot of us have great infrastructure. He's talking about a phenomenal infrastructure, you guys, but some of the smaller township cities, and again, this might not be specifically for some of you folks, but it might be ways that you can serve and share shared services with neighboring communities, make them more efficient, and maybe that part of the revenue can offset some of your costs of running your own base system. I think that's part of the goal that Northland has.
And that's a great point, because in fact, we're the township, but we work very closely with the city, and they don't have that workflow solution, and what's kind of prevented them from moving forward. They want it, but again, that affordability, and now we think we have that by using this solution, get those best practices and combine that, and the city's very interested in collaborating with us on that as
So
well.
you guys are instituting your own cloud solution, kind of like you're pushing your cloud solution to another, let's say, another shared service like local government.
We're still that's still in development, whether we will do that or not, or, but the point is, the idea now is really taking all this, they're realizing this can now be a very realistic solution for them.
I mean, we're going to be a where I thought it was, Scott was talking about is going to a web-based model for on-base. Boy, that would be nice, because then I don't have to install anything, no clients, nothing. That would be very, that would be very appealing to me.
What really makes this possible, and I talked about the Unity client, because the architecture of the Unity client allows us to use that piece of software across the internet, and not drop down to a browser. Because a browser is great, we all love it for searching Google, but a browser is not the best interface for doing workflow. Because it's not sophisticated enough, it doesn't give you enough keyboard and mouse control and things like that. And you know, that little flyover thing, all these features now are gonna be an app enabler included, will be available over the internet. So Keith, we are talking about putting their AP system in a cloud and making it available on a consumption price model.
Let's say Wauwatosa County's model in a cloud and buy it through that model, would we be able to do that?
Possible.
And then let's say also, okay, so we're using it over the cloud, then, okay, what about the SQL database? Are you guys, is it gonna be on your SQL database, or is that still on my own?
It could be on the same database. The thing is, when you're doing it over the cloud, you don't have a direct SQL connection with the server, so you're not being extraordinarily verbose and consuming a ton of bandwidth. You're just going to the web server, that itself communicates with the SQL server and returns the information to you. So that's why the Unity clients works well when you don't have extraordinarily verbose communication.
So I love how all your great IT brains make that all happen. This just started because they said, really, Scott, how can we make and develop an affordable solution? There's finance, and then you guys are the experts, really, and that is just amazing. That is just amazing, but we're, again, you know, this concept just really came about because it's just such an amazing technology that we're trying to make it a viable solution.
Good job. If anybody's interested in talking further about it, it's obviously a concept, not a product yet, so I don't want to oversell it, but see me, talk to Marina, you know, we can have a call, get some of your ideas, if you've got, you know, customers or, you know, other cities, villages, townships in your area that you think might want to collaborate.
Yeah. Thank you very much.